Sunday Live, back at it with the Average Joe Sports Show. The Iron Horse, Gary Sharp, Pride of Fairbury's Bill Doleman, Denver fan, Elijah Herbel, and Chris Schmidt. Can like and subscribe, as always, on YouTube to the Average Joe Sports Show 7 days a week. Find on Twitter, AJ Sports Radio, and, of course, the AJ Sports Pod Twitter handle as well. And Instagram, Elijah. We are on Instagram for all the lovely Average Joe Sports Show clips. You can check out some of the shorts we're doing. Fellas,
Gary's giving us a follow right now, it looks like.
No, I'm not on Instagram. I'm on TikTok, but I may join Instagram because the show is on Instagram. Do we have any baddies up there with us?
Kind of.
Isn't that what you're supposed to say?
Any baddies? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Aren't I speaking the language?
Yeah, that's not really why we're on Instagram, Gary, but
but we take all fans. We take all fans.
All of you IG models out there, get with the picture, get with the plan, follow Average Joe Sports Show on Instagram.
Yeah, we'll collab.
Yes. We'll share. Well placed.
My DMs are open.
You do both.
So,
is the address only Joe's or what?
Wow,
Joe's. No one wants that.
I was going to say, if that's the case, I'm out.
There are revenue streams to be had, Bill, but that ain't one of them.
Hey, we have in Omaha, we have a listener of 1620 that is on OnlyFans. Apparently she does pretty well. Yeah. She's a good sports fan. She interacts with the show. It's just I can't interact with a $14.99 a month.
Yeah. There are budgets. There are budgets to be had.
Priorities.
Yes. So just real quick on my end, I had to duck out yesterday with the weekend edition, and just kind of a family note. My father-in-law, Papa Al Watzik, a great man, passed away. We kind of figured early Saturday morning, and just an awesome dad to my wife, Erin, and his other daughter, Ashley, great husband to Grandma Jody, and just a wonderful grandpa to Carson. They had so many trips with baseball and Yankees trips, even to St. Pete over the years for spring training. So he will be missed. He battled his ass off against cancer, and Papa Al's resting. The man loved sloppy joes. The man loved onions. The man loved baseball. And the man loved asking me a lot of times over the past several years in coaching changes, what the hell are they going to do now? So, and once upon a time was fair caught by Barry Alvarez as Papa Al was escaping a fraternity party from the second floor. Coach Alvarez was a Lincoln police officer working on his master's degree before he left for Lexington to coach high school ball, and then into Iowa, and then obviously on to the University of Iowa, Notre Dame, and then Wisconsin. But yeah, Papa Al leapt out of a second-story window, and there's old Barry Alvarez securing the punt. There was no targeting issue, and that's a story I smile about. But I smile about the time with Papa Al, and he is resting easy. So that's where I went yesterday. I appreciate you all for popping in yesterday and making it go like you always do. Elijah, Gary, Bill, and Kranak, for sure. So that's what we're dealing with here. Mr. Snuggles is behind me. Don't know if you can see him, but he has his cone on and is pissed at the world. So we are two on the pup's back and not fleeing. So we're good. But on to football we go. Fellas, quite a to-do list for Matt Rule. I don't know how much you got into it yesterday post Iowa. We can kind of get into Nebraska's to-do list. How about bowl destination?
Hey, but before we do all that, can we go to Marty Smith to see what Lane Kiffin is going to do? I just want to get that update from ESPN because and then go to the tote board. It's like watching a Jerry Lewis telethon when I was a kid. But just absolute total ridiculousness last night, taking away from a great Iron Bowl for us to not know, or really many people not care about what Lane Kiffin is going to do, because obviously he was waiting till after the game was over with. But they created such an unnecessary drama yesterday for themselves by doing that and taking away from a great day of college football. So I just say that in advance of what we're going to talk about.
Poor Marty Smith was a prisoner in the Ole Miss facility last night.
Well, now what, they've pushed their team meeting back to the afternoon.
Yeah, it was supposed to be 9 this morning.
I mean, he was going to make those kids get up at 9 and come for breakfast for a breakup. I mean, hey, just text. That's what the kids do these days. I don't know. Hey, ESPN has not presented this in a very good light. I mean, Lane Kiffin goes from hero to villain. They're trying to make him a martyr. I mean, there's no one, like if any of us said, hey, on Monday, we're going to be working for a different company doing a show, but I'd like to finish out the week. I'd like to do Thursday and Friday, and then I'm going to take the producer with me. There's none of our employers would allow us to do that. I'm okay with Ole Miss saying, hit the road. But, man, if you're Ole Miss and you're looking at Auburn and Florida and Arkansas have all hired coaches this morning, Jesus, the SEC network's going to be wall-to-wall of coaches' press conferences tomorrow. What is Ole Miss going to do? I mean, we're kind of almost through the cycle. Penn State has been really, really quiet. That's how Pat Kraft works. But what is Ole Miss going to do? I mean, they're going to need a football coach.
Well, the problem is this, as I understand it, with Lane Train, he either gets to coach Ole Miss through the playoffs and then go to LSU if he goes to LSU, or he is just going to take the LSU or the Ole Miss roster with him to LSU. So you are left smoldering if you're Ole Miss, unless he just decides to stay. And I don't think he can stay anymore.
And even worse, I think, is that if he does stay and they do play, and then he takes, goes Signetti and takes 28 guys with him to LSU, it's like, what cupboard are you leaving? What are you leaving in the cupboard for Ole Miss after that? I mean,
who's going to take that job?
Yeah. Well, and the prime candidates, I think most notably Summerall from Tulane probably would have been a great fit there, but Florida got the jump on him, so they're going to get him. And Alex Golish is going to Auburn this morning with a 6-year deal, and Memphis,
Silverfield's going to Memphis to
Arkansas. So some of the prime young, coaches or ADs are now looking for the next Dan Lanning and Kirby Smart, who are coordinators who are going to land and just take the program to new heights. And there aren't a lot of those unicorns out there, right? And this would have been the time to discover one, because this coaching carousel, this cycle has been unlike anything we've ever seen. And with so many great jobs and not that many great, retrade candidates out there, somebody like a Summerall, Silverfield, or whoever, they're going to get that chance now. And Ole Miss rises to a top 5 program the last couple of years, and credit to Lane Kiffin for doing that. But he has the potential, if he goes to LSU, to leave it in shambles. I think he was waiting for the Alabama job to open up, personally. If Alabama had lost to Auburn last night, were they going to do Lane off the plane and tell Kalen DeBoer thanks but no thanks anymore? And Lane would have taken that job by midnight. Not going to open up, obviously, but this whole dance with LSU has set Ole Miss back, and I don't think it's going to do LSU any favors. They're going to be the black hat of college football even more than they might already be.
Penn State's intriguing, though, as well. Where I thought, they would make a heavy run at DeBoer just because of how tedious it's been for him in Tuscaloosa. He's done a good job. I mean, he bounced back. He had a brutal schedule this year. They won. They found a way last night in that rivalry game, and it was drama. It was great football to watch, and he'll probably stick and stay at Alabama. But I had thought, a couple of folks I talked to down in Alabama were like, just don't know how happy the quality of life is. I know you're rich. I know you're the head man at Alabama. You weren't scared to follow Saban. All those things that are super big in what you want your next coach to be, but you got to pretty much go undefeated down in Alabama, especially following that every year. And last year was not great compared to what they were used to, but completely understandable. How hard was DeBoer looking to get out of there? But now they're 10-2 and they're in the playoff and they're off to the SEC title game.
I don't know. The Penn State one is really interesting because that's how Pat Kraft operates. He's really, really quiet. Do they hire Terry Smith? All of a sudden, Penn State got bowl eligible. I don't know. We've seen that happen a lot. There was, do you hire Bo Pelini in 2003? Do you hire Bill Stewart, after West Virginia made a run when he came and took over the bowl game? I don't know. The thing what this has created is there's coaches that are staying in their current spot, or the whole Kiffin thing, that if you're at Florida today, and I think you got a good football coach, or you're Arkansas and Auburn, you're livid at your pick. You're not happy at all. Now, Florida, I do think they got a good football coach, but I would be upset at my AD. And there's only two guys that have ever won at Florida. People inflate, and I know a little bit about the Florida program. Yeah. People inflate Florida football. Oh my God, you're in the state of Florida. It's not as good a job as you think it is. Again, only two people have had success there, Spurrier and Meyer. You got an AD who had a basketball coach. Yeah, you won the national championship, but you had a little bit of a issue with him. You got a baseball coach who you got a lot of issues with. And then you just went through the whole Billy Napier stuff. Lane Kiffin would be perfect for Gainesville. That seems like the most ideal place. That makes so much sense for Lane Kiffin to be the head football coach at Florida, and it wasn't even in the running. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It's, if you want to bring it closer to home, and we know, everybody's angst about 3 years with Matt Rule and what's going to happen in year 4. Can you imagine if Nebraska was today searching for a football coach?
Well, there are some names out there that aren't going to be able to bring a team with you. So there are some more proven options as far as I'm concerned than what Florida, what Auburn, and what Arkansas have done. And my guy's Pat Fitzgerald. He's still on the beach and he's won. Now the SEC is not the Big Ten, but I think he'd be fine. He's safer to me. It just kind of comes down to fit. And guys, let's talk a little bit here about Nebraska and what we may find out this week. A little more clarity on Nebraska's direction. You'll have a smaller high school signing class. You are needing to get active in the portal. You've got fixes galore on the defensive side of the ball when it comes to shoring up your run defense. You have fixes as a program that you need to make when it comes to physical play and not getting demolished at the lines of scrimmage, especially defensively. And then you've also got the quarterback question that's out there with, do you keep both? Does one take off? Does both take off? Does one stay? Where does it go from there? And eventually you'll figure out where you're going to play bowl-wise as well. But, I look at Nebraska's physicality. I look at some moments where Nebraska this season as a whole got in their own way, where the run game's working and they dial up a pass and it kind of derails a drive. And I'm thinking of a few 2nd and 4s on Black Friday against Iowa where things are humming along and you just chuck it deep and you don't get that 50-50 ball or it's incomplete and you got to settle again in the red zone for a field goal. And then just from a tackling standpoint, how many times this season, fellas, and I'll go around the horn with you and also you in the stream, do you watch a Nebraska game? It didn't go the way it needed to go against a marquee brand, excuse me. And then you're watching somebody else and a team that is on an interim coach, or it's just a middle of the road team in another power conference. And man, does that other team you're watching on TV that's fighting Goliath look fast and physical. And boy, there's 3 or 4 hats to the ball and they can tackle. It just, the way
like
Nebraska,
Auburn last night,
like Northwestern, those guys never seem to miss a tackle in that snow globe game against Illinois. All right. Just a couple of things that popped to my head. Or you're watching a team even in the Big Ten where, okay, that team has some guys that look pretty fast and physical, and wow, do they tackle? And it just, the way Nebraska faded, there's so much to inventory from this season. And I don't think Nebraska was a great football team. They looked good at times. They didn't look good for 4 quarters. And you can't start the season like you did against Cincy and end like you did against Iowa. And I'm sure all of that is going to be combed through by Matt Rule.
Well, what I can't wrap my head around is Wisconsin in their worst season since Barry Alvarez became
played better football.
They have more wins against top 25 opponents in the last month than Nebraska has in the last decade. And it's their worst season since Alvarez became coach. I can't wrap my head around that.
The one big thing that they have to find a way. They have to find an identity, and if a lot of teams' identities, they mimic your head coach. Like, what kind of personality does your head coach have? I give credit to Iowa. One thing about Iowa, those guys play with a lot of respect for their head coach. Like, they don't want to let him down. And when they run into teams that have better talent, Iowa's probably not going to win. And we're still trying to figure out the identity of Nebraska through 3 years, but it comes back a lot to the head coach. We talked yesterday about indecisiveness, kind of, you want to be tough and physical, but are you really tough and physical? Right. So then you have a football team that is kind of in between. I don't know. There needs to be a deep dive on the collapse at the end of the year defensively, because if you go back to 2017, Nebraska's last 2 games, their margin of loss was a combined 54 points. This year it was 51. And I said yesterday, Schmidt, when you were away, they're much different programs, much different expectations, much different resources at your fingertips. But there's a lot of Riley Rule vibes through 3 years. And Riley actually beat a couple of ranked teams during that. Now, Rule, of course, has gone to 2 bowl games. But there has to be a dive on. Rule has said, I didn't see that coming. Didn't see that coming. What is the disconnect on defense where that's your specialty? But yet, turn it around, guys. The offensive line, going back and watching the game until it became clear that Latif couldn't run and Iowa figured that out with his hamstring injury. Nebraska's offensive line was pretty good. Mm-hmm. Now, how come all of a sudden that got better as the season went on, but the defense dipped? You got to figure that out. But the defensive thing is, when things go south, why was there an avalanche? Or was Nebraska all year defensively just holding on, and the style they played allowed them to put up a big sexy number with their pass defense while their run defense was getting crushed? Because at all 3 levels they had issues, and they never were consistent enough where they had a guy for 12 straight weeks that would go out there and ball, and you'd be like, man, that guy's going to make some plays. Javen Wright had a good year, but not good enough. Guys had good years, but not good enough. And then guys probably played a little bit more that should not have played enough. Yeah. And they got picked on once you got into the Big Ten and people had film, and you're like, we're going to isolate that guy here, or we're going to run through his gap.
No answers.
Well, one of my questions about this defense is he turned the offense over to Dana Holgorsen, who was the head coach of the offense. We talked about that a lot in the offseason and in the early season. But there's kind of a triumvirate. How do you not see it coming defensively if you hire John Butler to be your defensive coordinator and you have Phil Snow, who's supposed to be your guru liaison, mentor, Yoda? How is there a disconnect if you hired somebody specifically to be your guy to oversee the defense, which is what Tony White did not like, but Matt Rule and Snow are supposed to be on page with each other and have some type of link to John Butler and the defense? How is there? I didn't see this coming. Unless, you should be intimately involved with what's going on, especially defensively. Maybe the offense, I didn't see that coming. I left it up to Dana and Shorts and Donovan. I could maybe understand that, but it was like, this is Dana stuff. Now I'm gonna be able to do this, and I've got my guy to tell me what to expect and be involved in, and to not see it coming. I mean, credit to the other team, but why is there a disconnect?
I mean, guys, at the end of the day, Nebraska went 7-5, and they're probably closer to 5-7 than 8-4.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's a thing in the offseason is the worst mistake all of us can make is to go, man, Nebraska's only a few plays away. Man, they're almost there. I think you have to go through the offseason going, damn, we could have been 5-7 and sitting at home for the second time.
Plays away from 5-7.
Yeah, I think that's the mindset, because I think too many times, and this was a Frost thing. We were close. We're close. We're close. Are you really close? And do you know how to, figure out that gap? Now, I said yesterday, like if you look at Iowa and Nebraska, I don't think the gap has expanded between where Nebraska and Iowa is. My thing this year was, can Nebraska close the gap from where they were at the end of last year to where the upper echelon teams are in the league? I didn't expect Nebraska to get there, but can they close that gap? But I think sometimes we go through and go, man, they're really, really close. They're close. They're close. Well, maybe it changes your mindset and your sense of urgency of going, you know what? We're not that close. We've got to go into extra gear to figure out how to get above and beyond where we were last year at 7-5, because we can't sit here next year on a Sunday after the season ends and be talking about another 7-5 season.
They are further away to me this year than they were a year ago. At least they stopped the run and they were right there. I mean, they should have beat Iowa a year ago. This year they got their doors blown off and things avalanched on them. It went from bad to worse, specifically the final two games in November with Penn State and Iowa taking control and just physically manhandling you. They are less physical this year than they were a year ago, and I know that's personnel, but right now Nebraska's at probably the best tier 3 team there is, but they're clearly in that third tier. They're behind Illinois. They're behind Iowa. They're behind about
look what
everybody else
last night.
Well, I know, and that's the other thing. We talk about watching teams play, and all right, how does Nebraska look in comparison? Yeah, how does Rutgers have the lead for a good portion of that ball game, and then Penn State gets it out of the fire to hang on and win and get bowl eligible? Same with common opponent. Rutgers was a shootout against Iowa, right? I mean, Iowa had to really put up a lot of points this year to beat Rutgers. But then there's Nebraska, and you can't squeeze a drop in Big Ten play offensively because of your red zone performance. And you were honestly lucky to get 21 to 24 points on a good day offensively. For the most part, you were stuck in the teens. And that's just the offensive side. But defensively, man, they've got to go get space eaters. They got to go get some athletes at that second level. They have to. I don't know what they're doing practice wise, and I'm not throwing shade. I'm just asking, because when they say they're a developmental program and they do practice tackling, and how does it look like it looks against some of these opponents that are big and bad and want to push you around for 4 quarters? How does it look like that on Saturday or a Black Friday if you've been working at it Monday through Thursday all season long?
Well, and what really concerns me is this team, the internal expectation from the coaching staff was this was a team that could go compete in November, compete for a college football playoff. That wasn't lip service. That was legitimately what the coaching staff and what Matt Rule thought about this team. They thought it was a team that come November would have a chance to play their way into playoff conversations. And I don't know how you were so wrong in your talent evaluation on the internal roster to think this was a team that could go compete with the upper echelon of the Big Ten. I mean, and I know there was an element with that comment at Big Ten Media Days about the D-line being hell on wheels where you're trying to pump them up, but they thought this defensive line could hang. How are you so wrong in that evaluation? There's been so many instances of this coaching staff and Matt Rule looking at their roster and just being way off in what they thought they had in certain rooms. And that's a 3-year trend. I don't understand how you can look between Casey Thompson and Jeff Sims your first year and say, Jeff Sims is the better quarterback. Or how you could look at Emmett Johnson in your running back room and say, that guy's the third best option. He's a special teamer. We're not going to get him involved in the offense. And then this year, the defensive line, it is numerous instances year after year of this team being wrong on what they have in their individual rooms. And that's the greatest concern to me moving forward, that you don't seem to have a good finger on the pulse of what you have within your team year after year.
What do they project them being versus what they really are, right? And that's so much a part of this is, all right, can the guy play? Can you coach him up? Can you develop him? What's the internal motor like, fellas, with said player at set position that you need? What's in the pipeline from a development standpoint in this day of the portal? But yeah, for what you believed you had to what was the production on the field was night and day. Absolutely night and day. Guys, let's talk quarterback for a moment. And TJ Lateef, 1-2 in November, tried to gut it out with that hamstring against Iowa. Dylan was zooming around on the old scooter, pumping his teammates up. And, moving forward here, you talk identity. We got to discuss a little bit here about what does Nebraska want to do offensively with the athletic profile of what their quarterback is. You have two options here. You've got mobile, and then you've got pocket. And moving forward, you want to have the right choice made.
Yeah, I think whatever comes down with the quarterback will not be about what they do on the field. I think it'll be, can you handle oxygen that is sucked out of your program? I mean, what comes with Dylan? It's a business. Is the business too much to handle going into year 3, where if Dylan stays, Dylan came to Nebraska to be basically the impact of Pavia, okay?
Yeah.
To take a program that was middling and elevate it. And so you're getting towards the end if Dylan decides to return, and you know that there'll be so much outside noise that can you handle that, and do you want to handle that? Mm-hmm. I don't think it's an X's and O's who makes our team better necessarily. That is a factor, but there's the other stuff that I think comes down to what's best for Nebraska on a day-to-day basis, not necessarily on Saturday. And they've got to choose right and then have a plan. Because if you go with Lateef, okay, that's what you're committing to, and then go all in, find yourself a developmental quarterback or an older quarterback that understands the room that is coming in, and they're not like, hey, am I going to be the starter from day number 1? And you're like, you're going to have a chance to compete, but you're here to mentor our guys. And then you look what's coming in 27. It's going to be a huge offseason decision to make, because I think it will shape the rest of the program, how it moves forward, because then that you're all in on that quarterback. There's no, hey, I'm choosing 15 or I'm choosing 14. It's we've chosen, or somebody has chosen for us. This is our quarterback, and that's the way we're going to move forward beginning on January 1.
Well, if it's a business, which it is, Nebraska, if Nebraska has a $40 million roster, which they do, you have almost 10% of it wrapped up in one guy who is 13-9 or something like that as the starter in a season and a half or something along those lines. Numbers are just above 500. Yes, a 70% passer, but 7 yards per attempt. So do you put 10% of your salary into one player? If you're him and you look at what Nebraska has coming up on its schedule, and everybody seems to think that next year's schedule is going to be much more difficult, less user-friendly than this year's was. Do you need to go to some place where my resume is going to look a whole lot better? I'm not going to compare him to Joe Burrow, okay? But when Burrow had was he going to go to Nebraska or LSU? When he went to, if he had come to Nebraska, he would have been an 8-4 starter, 7-5, given the personnel around him. He made a wise decision to go to LSU, where they had all-stars all around, NFL caliber wide receivers, great offensive line, and he has one of the great offenses that he pilots in college football history. It was a great business decision for Joe Burrow, but he would not have had the same kind of numbers at Nebraska. Does Dylan Raiola shop himself around to go find a place where he will have better players around him and a chance to go 8-4, 9-3, 10-2, provided he is able to win the job, or is he just going to be given the job? It's a business decision that he has to make, because if he's going to play at the next level, 13-9 followed by another 7-5 season or 6-6 season at Nebraska, that's on your resume. And nothing that he did this year was all that dynamic. Nice player, but Nebraska is 7-5, and he's part of that, right? Not a total difference maker this year. So it's business.
Well, I think everybody has to prepare that if Dylan is not with Nebraska next year, that he's going to fall up. Okay, everybody prepare. If you are like, I don't know how good he was at Nebraska, wherever he ends up, if it's not Nebraska, and I mean, where he ends up, it's going to be better than Nebraska. It will be a negotiated fall up for Dylan to play his junior year of college football. Mm-hmm. And I think you have to be comfortable with that and go, okay, I get it. Instead of going, whoa, I mean, they must look at him differently than Nebraska is. What were you doing, Rule?
Well, there is.
It's a business. It's a business. It goes to the highest bidder. It goes to everybody thinks you can fix somebody else.
Well, and there are rosters in college football that are just a quarterback away from being relevant. Nebraska does not fall into that category in my mind. They are not a team that you can just throw a great quarterback on the field and say, that's it. That's the missing link. That's not going to help Nebraska, I don't think. There's so many issues. Offensive line play, defensive line play. What are you going to do post Emmett Johnson? How do you replace some of these experienced older guys in the secondary next year? Like, there are so many problems with this roster as I look at 2026 that you have to go address in the portal. That means Nebraska is not just a Dylan Raiola away, but there are other rosters out there in America where go get Dylan Raiola in the fold and they could potentially be a playoff caliber team. And that's one of the big flashing warning signs for Nebraska in 2026 is how much of your roster needs to get right. I mean, if I was Dylan Raiola, I'd be packing my bags. I'd be hopping in the transfer portal and finding a spot that I can go win some games and go be a potential first-round pick. Because I don't think that spot is Nebraska.
You know, one thing I would do, and it's not our money, but we're going to spend it, is it's trenches. We watched Ohio State and Michigan play yesterday. By the way, I hope people take it out on Bryce Underwood, okay? Bryce Underwood did not get better this year. But I'm sure in the offseason, we're going to hear all about Bryce Underwood. Michigan's got to go help him. They got to go spend some money on some wide receivers. But you look at Ohio State, and you got Sayin, who's dropping the ball into a bucket 35 yards down the field, just perfect pass. He's got his plethora of wide receivers, but Sayin is legit. What did Ryan Day, one of the first things he said after they won that game yesterday, talking about, you know, he first should have said, man, I'm glad I hired the guy with the pencil. Because what Matt Patricia did after losing 8 NFL picks to taking over that defense, making him the best in the country with 4 NFL picks. Great job, Matt Patricia. But he talked about the trenches. They won on the line of scrimmage. That's Big Ten football in the month of November. Nebraska in the month of November in the last 3 years is 2-10. This program for over a decade has not been very good in November. Why? Because you don't have a commitment and you don't have a development of winning the line of scrimmage on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And Ohio State, with their ability to go out and get skill guys falling off trees everywhere, they build the trenches. And we know what Michigan's been like, where they build the trenches. So I think like the skill guys shopping list for Nebraska should be further down. Find me guys in the trenches. One place, guys, I would not touch, and Nebraska does this because wide receivers are attractive to Nebraska. I wouldn't necessarily touch that wide receiver room in the offseason. I think there's some really good young talent in there. Why add more bodies? Let the guys that you've recruited, and Nebraska's recruited pretty well. Let those guys cook and see what you have. You know, that would be an area I wouldn't touch on the in the portal is wide receiver. I know they'll get one, but running back is more a priority.
Mm-hmm.
But I think offensive line, defensive line, either you have your answers internally, or if you don't externally, that's where my money would go.
Well, do you know you have the answers? And is it going to be a case of repeating this year where, okay, I thought X, Y, and Z were ready to go, and boy, were we wrong with the evaluation, or they didn't get developed? That's back to Elijah's earlier point. I mean, what's the trust level there with, all right, you're a year away versus, all right, this is the ceiling of this player. This is as good as he is going to get, and you just got to live with it, and it'll be okay some games, and it'll be quite apparent that against the Iowas and Michigans and Penn States of the world on the defensive line, that this player or this group is still not tough enough to win for 4 quarters against a really downhill run game. That's the other part of it. But you're right about the wide receiver room. I mean, there's young dudes there that you think are pretty good. Let them continue to grow and develop. And I think you've got a good coach in Shorts there. But yeah, spend that money, Bill, on your lines of scrimmage and some skill guys. And it feels like the initial year was really harped on with being physical, being developmental. You get Dylan, and then you've got to go get some toys, right? You got to go get some skill guys. You got to enhance and surround your 5-star talent with some weapons. But the best thing you can do is go get lines of scrimmage difference makers that are going to get off the field 3 and out, get the offense, the football back, and then be there to protect your quarterback or open some run lanes. It just felt like Nebraska's been torn about how much they want to chuck it around and show it off versus, okay, Dylan's out, you've got a young quarterback, let's really lean into the run game out of necessity versus it being a priority on its own because it works. It's how do you want to win and how do you want to play football on offense? And the answer was to run the football and then sprinkle in a little bit of the pass versus the other way around.
So let me throw some, let me go back to defensive line real quick, and I'm going to throw this out there because I mean, they were atrocious against the run this year. 98th in the country, 171 yards per game. That will be a killer in the Big Ten. But is there any part of all three of you and everybody else in the chat that looks at Nebraska's defensive line and says, okay, you blew smoke up our ass in the offseason. We didn't believe you because this 4 box here, we all were very suspect on the defensive line because we know what Nebraska lost, and there were great unknowns coming back. New position coach who hadn't coached in college, new defensive coordinator who is more of a defensive back guy. Hey, let's protect our guys in the back end, on and on and on. Is that Nebraska could convince you that they're going to be better, and they sacrificed this year taking their lumps to play guys, to get them on the field early, knowing that, thinking that they would get better as the season went along, but they took their lumps in 25, and it will benefit you in 26. Could I even start to convince you that? Now, I don't fully believe that, but there are a couple of guys that played more this year that I think will benefit them in the back end. You've got Simpson and Terry. Remember, Simpson was a huge win a year ago in recruiting, and he was hurt from the jump. But if you've seen him, he doesn't look like he'll be a redshirt freshman. He looks like he's somebody that's got 3 kids, a white picket fence in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and a portfolio. He's one of those guys that looks like a mean, badass dude on the defensive line. That they took their lumps this year, but it'll come out on the back end because a freshman from West Fargo who probably shouldn't have been playing the amount of snaps that he did, but he played himself into those opportunities, is there. Plus they have Tom Mua. Keona Davis played more. Riley Van Poppel played out of position. That they will actually be okay on the back end, but they took their lumps in 25. Can I sell that to you? Can I sell a car to you here?
I can listen, but I need to know the down payment. I need to know the interest rate, and I need to know what type of
undercoating you're going to get.
And I know this is a tough sell because they don't play football again for 278 days.
I think they have some talent there, but they don't have two bodies to plug up the middle. They don't have a guy that will take heat off his other mates on the defensive line as of now, right now. Maybe that guy emerges. I think they've recruited well. I don't know how well they've developed the defensive line. And listen, I thought you saw some flashes of a guy like Keona getting better. Really good games against UCLA and USC, but was visibly frustrated against Penn State because just getting smoked on the edge, right? And then Iowa, I mean, they just did whatever they wanted to do, and it was problematic. I like Winery a lot, but both those guys on the edge are still a work in progress at being really good against the run versus being ready to get it. And the other part of it too is like we need to be real about Nebraska's pass rush.
It's
because
non-existent.
And it's non-existent unless you send a couple of extra dudes. I mean, that's how Nebraska got home when and if they got home at all this year. It was McCullough coming off the edge. It was V9 blitzing. It was a pressure by Singleton. It wasn't the front four at all getting home one-on-one so you can drop 7 back into coverage. So I'm intrigued to see what year 3 is for a lot of these guys, but there's still 2 or 3 guys away that need to help complement. You can't sell me that. You can sell me that the best experience is playing and you get better by playing. Yes. But then what are you going to do with that experience? How do you teach and build and learn off of what you went through this year? Do they have the right people in their defensive line room to teach that and get them better, get them the best they can be?
And to play devil's advocate for a second here, to look on the other side of this, you can say, oh, well, these guys took their lumps this year, another offseason, strength and conditioning, spring practice. They have potential to be great next year. But you look back at the last couple of seasons, we've said that about a lot of guys in that defensive line room, and you haven't seen off-season jumps. You've been waiting for that jump from Linhart. You haven't seen it. You thought Riley Van Poppel last year. He took the red shirt. He played in his 4 games. That's so he can go be a difference maker down the road. That's what Rule said. He wasn't a difference maker this year. Keona Davis, I think he got a little bit better in the offseason, but he didn't take the kind of jump that you were expecting with how he's been pumped up in press conferences and off the field. You've been waiting for guys to make off-season jumps in that defensive line, and the jumps have been incremental. They haven't been monumental, and it doesn't like the guys took their lumps, but where is the confidence that they are going to take big jumps through an offseason to go be ready or more ready for Big Ten play next year based on what they've shown in the past in that defensive line room?
I will feel better about Nebraska's defensive line when I see 2 Coke vending machines line up opposite an offensive line. Okay? Oh, I'm Pepsi, whatever.
Stay with Coke.
Remember when Nash Hutmaker wrestled? He had to get down from like 330 to where he was at 285. Is there anybody that looks like that on Nebraska's defensive line who is just a total stopper? Just by sheer size is somebody that an offensive line has to handle. And Ty Robinson also. I mean, we're going back to Nash and Ty again. But nobody on that Nebraska defensive line is plugging any holes. I like watching Keona Davis play. He is so athletic when you watch him just run around. I would like to see him just run right at a quarterback and mow him down. But Nebraska does not have the vending machines you have to have along a defensive line that's going to plug up holes and occupy 2 bodies on the opposite side of them. And so what are they doing with Tyson Terry? I can't wait to see Tyson Terry play. He's had a year to get rehab a knee injury and to get bigger. So what is Corey Campbell doing with him? And Kristen, what's her name, Coggins, in the nutrition area? Are they beefing him up to where he is an athletic wrestling 315-pound defensive tackle that is going to be tough to manhandle because he's a wrestler. Yeah. You know, who are those guys? Not just one guy. Junior Menares is not walking through Nebraska's door. You got to have a couple of them. They're going to be run stoppers and just occupy people on the defensive line.
Now, you need in a 3-3-5. If you're playing an odd front up front in general, you need a nose guard that can eat up double teams on the inside. Yeah. And it's a concern to me that you went through last offseason and didn't even make an effort. I mean, look at their portal acquisitions last year. The closest you had to a true nose guard was Gabe Moore, but you didn't think he was going to be a guy that was going to contribute even as much as he did this year. It's a concern to me that again, back to talent evaluation, you were looking last offseason. If you wanted to run an odd man front, you did not bring in personnel to run an odd man front. And that's a concern to me as you look ahead to what do their portal acquisitions look like this upcoming offseason.
Yeah, and I think then that goes into a deeper one about your linebackers get involved in this conversation as well. When you're playing a 3-man front, how much your linebackers have to do and how good they have to be. And Nebraska's linebackers consistently weren't able to shed blocks. I think there is a deep dive, and it may not be a deep dive, it may be just reality. They're going to have to change their philosophy on stopping the run. And is that playing more 4-man? But there's also part of this. And remember, the thing about Nash and Ty is they did develop, but it took them a little bit before they became beasts. Okay, we were looking at 2, we were looking at 3 years. Is Nebraska actually could benefit the guys inside of the dark room in the line of scrimmage in the Big Ten if they could be better on the edge by setting it. Not just pass rushers, but guys that set the edge so they turn everything back inside. That was also a major problem as the season went along. Nebraska didn't have much of a pass rush, but they also didn't have guys outside that set the edge, because look at how many runs broke to the outside. They might have started as inside zone, but all of a sudden they were outside zone and they were gone.
Well, and counter as well. Yeah. You didn't have edges that could take on a pulling guard. Time and time again. It was inconsistent performance, if I'm being generous, with those edges taking on a pulling guard. I mean, teams went and found counter every single time against Nebraska. They knew that was going to hit for them because Nebraska's edges could not set the edge, especially against that pulling guard coming to kick him out. And then if they crashed down inside, you didn't have linebackers that scraped around the edge to go make a play on the outside. Teams were making hay with just simple counter because Nebraska's edges were unable to take on a pulling guard.
You didn't have an option to go to, and your frontline guys had no answer for that edge play. I mean, is it time to talk about the 3-3-5 shifting? I mean, is that what Butler wants to run? Is that what you stick with? Is that the personnel you've recruited for the last 2.5 years before Tony White moved on? I mean, is it viable in the Big Ten against the run? It was good a year ago again with 2 Coke machines.
Yeah,
but it wasn't. It was a nightmare this year. You overcorrected with being sick and tired of losing the down on 3rd and 8 a year ago. So you went out and you got really souped up with what you had personnel wise and scheme wise on the back end to stop the pass, and that worked. That emphasis paid off. You were great against the pass, but man, you I don't want to say you sacrificed stopping the run for it, but it's got to be in unison. This whole season comes down to complementary ball, right? Even on one side of the football. And you rob Peter to pay Paul, so to speak, with what you wanted to be great at. And the attitude needs to change from surviving the run to stopping the run. And will that happen with an NFL guy as your defensive coordinator?
Well, with the defensive philosophy, whether it's 4-3, 4-2-5, 3-3-5, 3-4, I hear people say a 3-man front will never stop the run. No, every scheme can stop the run if you have the right personnel to run that scheme. And as I look at Nebraska's personnel right now, a 4-man defensive front makes a lot more sense to me because you're likely losing a guy in McCullough last year that was your edge, your jack position. Don't really see a guy on the roster. I know they have Dylan Rogers there, but I'm not quite sure. I look at Winery, I look at Petschok. Both look like 4-3 defensive ends to me. I look at a guy in Riley Van Poppel. That's a 3-tech defensive tackle. Gabe Moore is your nose guard in a 4-3 scheme, not head up the center, but he's going to be that guy playing your 1 technique. Mm-hmm. I see the personnel in Nebraska's defensive line that fits a 4-3 a lot better, and I saw that last offseason too. We talked about it in the summertime. I didn't think their personnel matched up with the 3-3-5. You saw the result throughout the season. We'll see what portal acquisitions and portal departures look like, but as it stands right now, your personnel still is better fit for a 4-man defensive front. That would have left Hassan McCullough a little bit hanging out in the wind because I don't think he fits into a 4-3. But as I look at the personnel for next year, 4-3 or at least a 4-man defensive front. Maybe it's 4-2-5, whatever it may be. It doesn't really matter. I think the personnel they have in that front fits a 4-man front a lot better than it fits an odd front.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right.
It just comes down, hey, the 3-3-5 can stop the run. We saw it last year, but you have to have the personnel to run it. And a 4-man front, I can stop the run if you have the personnel to run it. And the personnel you have right now fits 4-3.
Or if Penn State wants to just slam you, you can put 5 on the line, and it doesn't matter.
Well,
which they did.
And then commit to it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if that's what you're going to play, then stick with it. You know?
Comes back to your point of identity, Sharpie.
Well, I mean, you know, and that's, it'd be nice to go to any stadium in America every Saturday, whether your home stadium or road stadium, and, you know, this is going to travel. You know, running the ball, going to travel. Stopping the run, going to travel. You know, those things have a tendency to work when you get to November. And I think the focus is on how do you win in November? You know, I mean, it's not like Nebraska is going to be handed an easy schedule in November. They're going to be handed Iowa at least. They're going to be handed a West Coast game. And you got to win in November. 2-10 in November is not good enough. It is not good enough at all. You have to be better in November if you want to get to where you are. But you know what? I hinted at this yesterday. I think we just need to say, you know what? 8-4 is the ceiling for Matt Rule. And once in a while, break through that ceiling and be okay with winning 8 games. People in Iowa City are happy with winning at least 8 games. People in Champaign have done it 3 of the last 4 years. It might have been a bad year, but they got to 8 wins.
Well, would you rather be a team that can punch up and give a fight to your Ohio States and Indianas of the world? Or would you rather be a team that is solid and consistent and consistently beats your Illinois and Minnesotas and Iowas of the world? Because it's tough to do both. Ohio State can do it pretty well because they have the best talent in America on their roster. Nebraska's not going to get the talent that Ohio State gets. But I think that's a question you have to have. Do you want to be the team that is consistent on the lines of scrimmage and can play with those tier 2 and tier 3 teams with consistency? Or do you want to be a team that's got some explosion on the edges that can go and potentially shock a team like Ohio State and Indiana? I think this year's team was maybe more equipped to go shock in Ohio State than they were to go play solid football along the lines of scrimmage against your traditional Big Ten West style teams.
Give me consistency. And you didn't have that this year. You had the wrong kind of consistency, and you've had the wrong kind of consistency in November. Needs to go 180 if you're a Nebraska fan. But start with what's in front of you right now. You beat who? You beat Northwestern. All right. And you beat Cincinnati. Against anyone else that had a pulse and was pretty good. And Iowa's a really talented 8-4 team with who they lost to and how they lost. And the score was representative of the gap, how good they were at 8-4 that was kind of murmured in the playoff discussion.
I think they were the 4th best team in the Big Ten. I know they lost to USC.
So.
I still think they were the 4th best team in the Big Ten.
By the way, they also, if they're quote unquote 3 rivals, look at what they did against Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Nebraska.
Take the shit out of all of them.
What is it? 108. That's true. I mean, I think it was 118 to 19.
Well, there you have it. Yeah. As we wind down the Sunday live edition of the Average Joe Sports Show, a quick thought on Bill of your sources, Sharpie, Elijah, your sources in Oxford have anything new?
I keep looking at the crawl to see if an announcement has been made. But again, I think he's just waiting for Kalen DeBoer to take the Penn State job so he can take Alabama. What I would find interesting is if he did take LSU and DeBoer goes to Penn State, if Lane says, I'm going to Tuscaloosa. Look, I did not get the chaos that I've been waiting for all football season. I wanted Michigan to beat Ohio State. Not that I have anything against Ryan Day and Ohio State, believe it or not. But I was hoping for chaos, that Michigan would win, Ohio State wins a national championship, and Ohio State fans want to fire Ryan Day. I was waiting for that. I was waiting for DeBoer to collapse against Auburn to see what that would do to people in Tuscaloosa. And would they want to fire him even though they've had a decent season? That didn't happen either. So I was a little disappointed in that yesterday. But I'm all for Lane Kiffin taking LSU and then turncoating and taking Alabama at some point in the next few weeks. That would be great.
Is
That's
the
all I
Miss,
live for.
is the Ole Miss situation, is the chaos, does that change the math for the committee? We remember whenever Jordan Travis went down for Florida State and it changed.
Oh, that's a good point.
Left out. I know was that the 4-team era? I think was that the 4-team era? Or was that the 12-team era? I think it was 4-team era, so it's a little bit different.
No.
But does Ole Miss not having their head coach change the math at all for the playoff committee? I mean, they got killed over that Florida State decision, and now it's a 12-team playoff. It's a little bit different.
Florida State's program.
Well, On3 Sports just reported that tomorrow LSU will announce Kiffin as their head coach, and Kiffin has already assembled his offensive staff. So those guys are coming from Ole Miss. I mean, it's going to be for the players that are left at Ole Miss. Man, this is really, really unfortunate because they're in line to get a play. They're in line to play a home playoff game, and they're not going to have their head coach. They're going to have Joe Judge probably as their interim head coach. They're going to have GAs or analysts that are probably going to be in roles of calling plays or working with you all week. I mean, it's just this is I don't know the perception of Kiffin. Is he go from the funny guy hero to the villain?
Yeah.
Or do we or a year from now do we really care? It's like, oh man, Kiffin at LSU is great for the sport. Well, this isn't good for the sport, what's going on right now, and not good if you're at Ole Miss and you worked all season long. Man, I blame Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly, why'd you have to suck?
Well, I think you can really blame Lincoln Riley as he loaded up all of Sooner Nation, the 4- and 5-star talent, and went off to La La Land. I mean, that really was the grenade pin with all of this. Because it's one thing for your coach to leave; it's another for him to take the entire roster / recruiting class.
Well, when does the transfer portal open up?
January 2nd.
January 2nd.
With both those, I look at same thing with Lincoln Riley going to USC. I look at with Lane Kiffin potentially going to LSU, probably going to LSU. Is it about going to a place that pays you more money? Is it about going to a place that you think you have a better shot at winning a national title, or is it about ego? I think this Lane move is all about ego.
It is
totally.
I don't think he's got a better chance of winning a national championship at LSU than he does at Ole Miss.
He just loves to be coveted, man.
He's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot more pressure on that gig at LSU than he's feeling right now at Ole Miss.
If it wasn't for Ole Miss, by the way, what was the perception of Lane Kiffin before he went off to Ole Miss?
Yeah, I mean, it was rocky. I mean,
he mature enough to take another high-profile gig.
And he went and saved his reputation at Ole Miss, and Ole Miss is a big part of that. Now he's leaving him in the dust to go off to LSU. I hate this move for him, and I think it's just all about his own personal ego. What legacy does he want to have?
I mean, at the end of the LSU is a much better job than Ole Miss. I think if you're Lane Kiffin, you have to take this job because you're Lane Kiffin. That's what your career has been. I mean, there are plenty of there's not like no evidence that would say, oh, if Lane stays, he won't recruit the guys on the field or his own staff to take to LSU. I mean, this is what Lane has done. Lane lives in a world of chaos and drama. So if you're Lane Kiffin, you have to take this job, and he's going to take this job, and it's a better job. But if you win at Ole Miss, you're a legend. If you don't win at LSU, you're fired. But he could be very, very scary at LSU with the amount of resources that they're going to give to him. I just want to point this out. Buy your tickets now. LSU plays at Ole Miss next year.
I cannot. That Ole Miss student section, it's already got like the little 3-syllable thing. Lane's a hoe. That's going to be a great chant from the Ole Miss student section next year.
The other part of this is, to your point about resources and talent. There's talent in that Sun Belt region. There's talent in Mississippi. There's all sorts of talent in Louisiana, and you're the school down there. Now that you're fighting right now too much with Mississippi State for recruits, but everybody comes into your neighborhood, and it's a harder job to win at Ole Miss right now, despite what you've done.
Well, there's no question about that. And good on Ole Miss's AD if they said, because what was one of the 500 reports yesterday from Marty Smith was the sticking point is whether he could coach his team in the playoffs or not, and all that. If I'm Ole Miss, I'm saying you're gone. You want to coach there, then go coach there. But we're not going to have you 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Actually, probably one hand in and both feet at LSU and recruiting players and all that stuff. if you're Ole Miss, you got to let them go and take your lumps and rebuild and hope you can find somebody decent. And maybe you get Eddie O again, go 2.0.
Go Tigers.
On. What the hell, I don't know what they do, but it's the glory days of Ole Miss football, and they're about to come to an end, and they're going to be rebuilding for a while because this is going to set them back. The timing is awful for them, and that's too bad. So, but it's chaos.
Coach O will end up on Lane's staff at LSU.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, LSU is going to be. They're going to be scary. They're going to be really, really scary. It's just this is. Man, we do $25 million for. Hey, we do Saturdays so well in this sport, so well. But man, Sunday through Friday, man, we find a way to F up this sport. We do. I mean, the games are great, the atmosphere, everything that goes in with college football. But man, outside of it, whether it be the playoff, the NIL, the portal, the calendar, all of that stuff, man, we can't get out of our own way. Well, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. On that note, we'll stay out of your way till we get back at it.
Bask in the longest winning streak in college basketball.
Yeah,
right?
Fred isn't happy.
Yeah, but the Huskers won. Justice Rhodey killed it yesterday.
I was going to say.
So
Justice Rhodey, Big Red.
Loved
Husker volleyball unbeaten.
Justice Rhodey.
It is. We love Justice Rhodey.
Bill, I've said this before, I'll say it again. The standard of student broadcasting at Nebraska, when you compare it around to not just the rest of the Big Ten, but the rest of the country, it's pretty incredible. It's a credit to you. It's a credit to all your students as well. You do a fantastic job turning them out up there.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Pride of Fairbury's Bill Doleman, the Iron Horse. Gary Sharp says free Marty Smith. Elijah Herbel is off to Denverland. Are you watching your donks today?
Tonight, yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Not the rest of America isn't. That might be a gross matchup, but I'll be excited. Quite quick question here. Whenever we get together and talk next week on conference championship weekend, are we talking about coaching changes for Nebraska?
Let's put this to the Joes real quick too, because Sharpie, you brought it up. Bill, next Sunday is Nebraska Creighton.
Mm-hmm.
Next Sunday is
bowl announcement.
Bowl announcement. Next Sunday is probably a lot to comb through with maybe some announcements roster wise. So, do we do a after dark average Joe, after Creighton Nebraska average Joe? How's that sound to the fellas?
When is the playoff announcement as well?
Doesn't that come like at 11, right before the NFL kicks off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the bowl game announcements come periodically afterwards throughout the afternoon.
Then you have tip off at 4 with Nebraska Creighton. So do we look at like maybe a 7 o'clock, maybe even down in the rail yard somewhere? Would you guys be down for that?
I say let's do this show after dark with probably a busy week of things to digest.
All right.
Sound all right? All right. Well, Audible, I'll make a call to the rail yard, and we'll see if we can't set up.
I was going to say, I do think we might be giving some of the average Joes out there PTSD if we do a show from a bar yet again after the Real Red Reaction show. I know
5 minutes of just technical complication thanks to my computer. It was just all we needed to do was click on a different button, and it was fine. It just shifted back to normal mode. We're good. And the other 2 hours and 10 minutes of the show was fine. James, we may have.
Yeah.
But are we talking, will there be coaching changes for Nebraska next weekend? Call your shot. Will we have those to talk about as this week progresses?
No.
Not yet.
Oh, you're waiting on me.
I personally think there might be 1 or 2 by the time we talk next week.
I think you have to keep an eye on. I tell you, Addison Williams will be a popular guy going back to the SEC. I think his guys like him. He's got some young guys to work with. But if I'm a new coach in the SEC and I want a guy that's got DC experience that also knows that area for recruiting, Addison Williams might be a guy I would look at. But there's a couple of
on his own volition.
But he also here's another thing, and I don't think it'll happen in the next week. You got Satterfield coming off the OC contract. So does Does he transition into a tight end, less pay contract? Does he stay? Those kind of things. But everybody will keep an eye on Donnie to see what's happening there. But I'm going to focus on Addison Williams, because if I'm a guy in the South and I'm new at that job and I'm looking around the country and putting a staff together, he would be an attractive guy. I think it's also important, and I don't, that Nebraska keeps a 30-year-old wide receiver coach.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, and I mean, he's an up-and-comer who, his coaching chops were on display this year for the good and the bad, but I think it's important to have another year of the Kale Shorts.
Big time, and you need another year. You need a better year from Dana as well, because I think if you want to keep Shorts here, Dana's got to stay.
Well, I think you need a better year from both coordinators.
Big time.
I don't think anybody gets a pass this just because your name's Dana Holgerson. I don't think you get a pass, but we probably need an explanation of what is Nebraska's identity going to be on offense, and whose offense is it? And does the OC get to go shop for the goods that he thinks he needs for his offense, what he wants to do in 2026?
And does the OC like who's coaching under him? I mean, does he have guys that are doing the job he sees fit? Because he inherited that side of the football, honestly, when he got brought in with that offensive staff. That's
another question. Does your DC still like college football, or is he an NFL guy? I don't, if it's up to Matt Rule, I don't think Butler's going anywhere. Does Butler still want to be in college football is a question that I have. It's been a long time in the NFL to come back to college. Is that still something he wants to do? There's no inside information there. That's not me. This is
just a fair question.
Is he a guy that wants to be in college football still, or is he a guy that wants to be in the NFL?
Well, whatever he chooses to do, they have to change their philosophy on stopping the run.
Big time. It's the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Thanks for checking us out. Sunday live with the Average Joe Sports Show. Like and subscribe on the YouTube channel with the Average Joe channel, and also on Twitter, AJ Sports Radio, AJ Sports Pod. It'll be an Average Joe After Dark next Sunday. As everyone have a great week. And Gary Sharp, of course, with Gary and Matt, 6 to 10, Monday through Friday on The Zone. Find us tomorrow, 4 to 6 on KFOR and across the Average Joe Network with the Average Joe Sports Show. Billy D, Gary, Elijah, appreciate you all. Joe, thanks for hanging out in the chat. We'll talk to you next time.